This is TWiT.
All right, Matt. Now you're back in the hot seat because the New York Times says Sundar Pichai sucks. Can a nice guy be an effective leader is the question the Times asks. Daisuke Wakabayashi, talking to restive Google executives, all anonymous, of course, who say that Sundar takes too long to make a decision. We have seen some blog posts. The guy who founded Waze, Noam Bardeen, when he left, wrote a blog post kind of excoriating the Google culture, saying it had turned into a big, slow-moving company. Do you stay in touch with people at Google, Matt, or have you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because even, in the later days when I was at Google, you could definitely feel like getting a change launched was more difficult, of course, than the early days, but also just like, okay, how does it affect, international markets, the search quality in other languages, that sort of stuff. And some people are like, oh, you have to get all of these approvals, but also, it's a natural thing that when you are a really big company with a really big footprint and impact, you're going to have more scrutiny. And that's, it's hard to try to figure out how can you move quickly while still being big. And I don't think anybody's found the perfect solution to that at all. Every time I wrangled or interacted with Sundar, he was always doing a really good job.
I've only talked to him when he was running the Chrome OS division, but I was very impressed by his genial and nature, his intelligence, his candor. I thought he was a really great guy, but that does not necessarily make a great CEO. In fact, it might be the contrary abilities. I have to say, the Times buries about 8 paragraphs in. The Google executives complaining about Mr. Pichai's leadership acknowledge that and say he is a thoughtful and caring leader. They say Google is more disciplined and organized these days, a bigger and more professionally run company than the one Mr. Pichai inherited 6 years ago.
Stacey, you were going to say that, I'll pipe in.
Well, I was just going to say what they're doing is building a story based on an archetype, right? And so you've got the Zuckerberg archetype, which is I don't care about other people. I never apologize. I never think about things. I'm just in it for, I don't know what he's in it for. Anyway, the money, the data, the whatever. And then you've got this sort of thing, which is, oh, he's too slow moving, and very thoughtful and blah, blah, blah. Google's beset by problems and it's slow moving. And it is. It is a much bigger company. It's trying to do a lot more things. But there's two things happening here. One is conflating the person at the top with the fate of the company. And I know that leadership matters. I mean, you look at Intel and you can just watch how leadership has just sucked a company just down the toilet. But I also know that there are many people under him, and Google is a company that from the outside really looks pretty disorganized just in general. So I don't know if I feel like the executives there complaining about Pichai really means much. Does that make sense? And I think the New York Times is kind of making a story to fit a mold that it needs.
Jeff kind of was a little pissed off, actually, as I remember.
Surprise!
Journalistically, I thought I just came. Peter Kafka and I from Rico just went back and forth with each other on Twitter. Like, well, I don't know if I could do well in your journalism class. I said, well, maybe not. I think this is based on anonymous reporting. You can write this story about any boss out there. Well, some people like him, some people don't. They don't like him, makes decisions. Any boss there is. And in my tweet, I said, can you scroll up?
Yes, the more I think about this New York Times one-man trend story about Sundar Pichai, the more ridiculous it is, Jeff Jarvis wrote. It could be written about any boss in any organization. Some agree, some disagree, some like, some don't like.
Go up to the prior tweet.
And the initial tweet is, go ahead.
Go ahead. Media, move fast and break things is Silicon Valley evil. Google, our CEO is thoughtful and patient. New York Times, let's do a trend story about Google cracking because it's not moving fast and breaking things.
There is a little contradiction there. Mike Masnick replied to you. He said, how much do you want to bet that if Google had acquired Shopify, we'd be seeing New York Times story about how weak antitrust is that it was allowed to happen? So that's another point, is that the Times has a little bit of a dog in this hunt. But we have said on this show, Mike Elgin said it first, we've said it several times, that Sundar Pichai may not be the right man for the job. Google is making a lot of money. They've doubled their staff. They've tripled their revenues since he took over. But it's making money the way it's always made money, in search and advertising.
Well, you can't abruptly switch. I mean, Google is clearly trying other things to make money. I don't think anyone at Google's like wandering around going, not aware that search one day is going to erode. But I think they're struggling with how to build up that much money again. And part of that's just because they got in early. I mean, it's like you got in early on the web. That gives you untold advantages. And actually, that's why the FTC is in the Congress are looking at antitrust things now, is the companies that got in early in these kind of newly forming networks are raking in the dough. And
well, if they did it well, there's also, I mean, of course, Alta Vista and Yahoo are untouchable.
Yes.
I mean, Google, to its credit, did really well.
Yes, well, same as Amazon, also, same as Facebook. Apple's a little of an outlier there, but
Matt, it's interesting to me that I feel like Larry Page, Sergey, like they hired a lot of really great / smart people in the early days. And then sometimes if Larry or Sergey or even Eric were like, we're going to go down this route, they had enough people who were like, maybe. And it wasn't mutiny, but it was like, we'll just have our backup plan in our pocket where if this thing doesn't work out, we're ready for the next thing. Like you had a really high caliber of people. And I think they've been able to maintain that much better than a lot of big companies that I know of. The one thing I would just add is Google is, it's kind of entering, the whole tech industry is entering the lawyer season. Like, the ability to talk well in front of Congress makes a difference and will for the next few years, at least, just because of the spotlight that's coming on big tech in general. And if you compare and contrast or think about Sundar, testifying to Congress versus Larry Page, Larry is brilliant. He's fantastic. He has all kinds of amazing ideas, but he wouldn't be my first pick to go sit down in front of, the Federal Trade Commission or Congress. And it feels like Sundar is pretty well suited for that. Certainly there's areas where he, you might say, okay, well, where's the maniacal vision or something like that. But Sundar does a good job of listening to, the feedback that he's hearing.